welcome back to Mesh Talk with NickiJean, and I am sitting with the lovely Keta Jeaux. Welcome, Keta Jeaux.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
You look great.
Thank you, so do you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to get all in your business. I've heard some great things about you, your career. So, okay, you're considered a singer-songwriter, right? That's what we would okay. Are there any other labels under, or any other titles that you...
I like to say business-minded creative. It kind of covers all the fronts.
Okay.
I just like to tell stories and help others kind of tell their stories as well.
Through music.
And it's turning out to kind of involve maybe some film and art films and things like that as well.
And you're mostly like directing, creating the mood boards and things of that nature.
Creative direction and all that good stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about where you are from. Born and raised, where are you from?
So I was born in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And the locals call it Kentuckiana. So basically I was born in Louisville and then I was raised in southern Indiana. Okay. And the only thing separating it is the Ohio River. So sometimes we'll be like, oh, I'm from Indiana or I'm from Kentucky. And technically, it would be both.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Didn't know that. Tell me, I mean, that's a good fun fact, too. But, like, what's the, first memory you have with, like, home and music?
So, we have to go way back.
Yeah,
right?
let's go.
My mom went to a youth performing arts high school. Okay. She went to school with Nicole Scherzinger. So, that school is pumping out really amazing talent.
Yeah.
She's a classically trained vocalist and Suzuki method violinist since she was 3.
Wow.
And then she met my dad, who was a wild punk rocker, lead singer in a punk rock band. So the creativity is very much in my blood, especially when it comes to music, right? I was homeschooled my whole life, along with my 2 younger sisters.
Okay. Because of just the work schedule for your mom, or she just preferred homeschool based on career paths that you guys were in?
So I started homeschooling 1st grade.
Okay.
So I think there was a lot of different factors. Probably just she wanted to be around us a lot, or at least have those early years, and then it just kind of developed and continued.
Yeah.
That's not for everybody, but it really served us well.
Okay.
My sisters and I are very close because of it. My mother and I are very close because of it. And
that's awesome.
She's young, so we're like besties.
Awesome.
But all 3 of us could do 4-part harmonies with my mom since the youngest was 6.
Wow.
So that's like kind of my earliest memories is, I could sing before I could talk.
Right. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned that you guys do 4-part harmonies, but like, are we talking like, okay, we're just sitting and having breakfast and we're singing in the house, or have we performed as a family?
So you know what? That is a great question. I don't really know that we've necessarily performed like on a stage as a family. Family gatherings and things like that. It's, hey, go sing a song, all of you guys, all that fun stuff. But my sisters and I definitely have done like talent shows and things like that together.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so that's kind of where we started. And now you are in LA. How did you make your way to LA?
Oh, man. So that is such a great question because where I'm from, people don't really leave.
Right. Because it's a
smaller environment. It's a very close-knit community. And, because my family and I were so close, I didn't really need outs. I had friends, obviously, but we were so close that I didn't have this need to, like, leave. I wasn't miserable where I'm from.
Okay.
But I'd say the way that I got out here was kind of a long story, but the condensed version would be I experienced chronic health challenges that have affected me since I was around 10 to 12 years old.
Okay.
And when I recovered enough to be able to do life in a real way again, which was probably 13 or 14.
Can I stop you really quick and ask
for sure.
what are those?
So my diagnoses are chronic Lyme disease.
Okay.
I have fibromyalgia.
Okay.
I have a rare spine condition called syringomyelia.
Okay.
And then I have type 1 narcolepsy, which is also known as narcolepsy with cataplexy.
Okay. And what does this really mean? These are very technical terms.
Right.
I do know a few. But
everyone's going to have to pull their phones out and Google all these different terms, right?
For sure. I mean, that's the purpose, right? You know, educate yourself too. But there's also someone that's watching that probably has the same exact diagnosis. So I'm hoping that this conversation really touches them as well. So break down those diagnoses for me.
So chronic Lyme disease, I was bit by a tick when I was young. and contracted Lyme disease. I went undiagnosed for about 2 years.
Okay.
And by the time I got diagnosed, I was basically bedridden.
What type of symptoms were you experiencing?
Oh gosh, what symptoms wasn't I experiencing? My daily symptoms list at that time was about 2 pages long. So it was everything from Bell's palsy, which at 10 years old is very shocking, joint pain, nerve pain, muscle spasms, extreme fatigue. Yeah, just like so lightheadedness, dizziness, all these things, right? So a lot
comes with just Lyme disease.
Yeah, but then at the same time, there's a crossover happening. So it's fibromyalgia as well, and then this spine condition. Okay. So some of the symptoms kind of bleed into each other.
Okay.
So I couldn't necessarily pinpoint, I'm feeling this way. It's from this.
Right.
It's just kind of a melting pot happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then narcolepsy
has affected my life the most and the most recently. I was diagnosed when I was 17.
Okay.
I was actually on my way from a music video shoot, and it was probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and I started to giggle, and the next thing I knew, I was completely paralyzed on the concrete floor. But I was aware of everything, so I could hear my mom. I could hear the echo of her voice in this hallway, right? Mm-hmm. Which was a very interesting experience, to say the least. And we ended up going to the ER, obviously, and they were a little confused because I was telling them I was conscious.
Right.
It wasn't like a seizure or I was passing
I'm aware
out, right?
Of everything I can hear.
And so they told me to see a neurologist, and the neurologist said that I had type 1 narcolepsy, and that what I had experienced was the symptom called cataplexy.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that's affected my life the most as compared to some of the other ones is I'm more able to mask pain. It's easier to kind of push through or pop a couple of leaves and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But with narcolepsy, my body takes over. So an example would be, it's a sleeping disorder.
That's what I was going to say. Okay, let's break that down. Right. Because I had a teacher from university who had narcolepsy, and he was fine and I'm not sure what type, to be honest. He was fine when teaching. However, if there were like test moments or more downtime moments, then he could not handle.
Yeah, so it's technically it's neurological.
Okay.
And it's, some people consider it autoimmune as well. And what causes it is my body doesn't create enough of a neuropeptide called hypocretin, which regulates your sleep-wake cycles. So a person without narcolepsy would experience the full spectrum of their sleep pattern, if you will.
Right.
So you go from this stage and you end at this stage, right? I almost exclusively experience the dream stage of sleep. And when you're experiencing that stage of sleep, your brain is actually just as active as when you're awake.
Right.
So I don't experience rest. Someone without narcolepsy would probably have to stay awake for 48 to 72 hours to feel how I feel daily. So with that excessive daytime sleepiness comes the, falling asleep at any time, right? Oftentimes in cartoons, or I think Homer Simpson has narcolepsy. He's falling asleep while he's eating and things like that. While that might not be everyone's experience, that's kind of like a interesting visual to kind of serve people.
Thank you, because some people are not aware.
Some people with narcolepsy, type 2 narcolepsy, don't experience cataplexy, which is the full body muscle paralyzation that I do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that has affected, I'm sure that
there's so much within
so many things that all diagnoses have affected your life, but I'm just curious to know, because here we are, because we're going to get into your career and how amazing you are and what you're doing, but I'm wondering, was there ever a time where you weren't like motivated, or you know what I mean? Like going into, I know you started very young in your career, but like, what does that really look like, if that's a thing? Because I feel like other people may let that kind of just like take over, and I can't do this. And, so I'm just curious if there were those moments, and, if so, how did you like push through them?
Well, the first thing that I always tell people when I kind of share this side of my story, which is so important, and that will reveal itself as we continue this conversation, is pain is personal. So oftentimes when I share kind of my experience on a daily basis, people will say things like, oh, this makes me feel bad when I have a cold. Like, you're just going through life feeling that way and showing up, right? But pain is so personal, and I do think it's a very alien experience. I don't really feel that it's something that we're destined to experience in this life. But if you happen to experience pain in any of its colors, showing up to whatever degree is enough.
Yeah.
In regards to motivation and kind of perseverance, right? One of these diagnoses alone is really hard to live with. So then when you're compounding all these symptoms on top of each other, you know, a certain type of mindset either does or doesn't present itself.
Okay.
My mom, and you'll hear me talk about her a lot because she is just my superhero. She really fostered, not only within me, but my sisters as well, this mindset of if you can control and harness your mentality, life will just be better, whether a health condition is involved or not, right? So from a very young age, I was practicing mindfulness.
Right.
And that is what got me from, you know, being basically bedridden to work in the entertainment industry for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
But I will say, since that diagnosis of narcolepsy started when I was 17, it's the more recent one, I did have to learn how to do life again.
Yeah.
And there was definitely a point in time where I felt like my joy was kind of stripped away from me because cataplexy is actually triggered by intense emotions. So my main trigger is laughter. It's not every time that I laugh. Sometimes it's not even noticeable to other people. It ranges from slacking of the jaw, kind of like I'll lose control of my head or my knees will start to buckle, to that full state of paralysis. And so I've had to learn to regulate my emotions even on a deeper level because of it. So within all of that, right, I'm experiencing these states of, I say that the veil is very thin for me when it comes to dreaming. That has sparked a lot of really interesting experiences creatively. So I've just kind of taken the pain and slapped a bunch of purpose onto it and kind of gone about it that way.
I love that. I think that's important, and I think that it's easier said than done.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that, and you're just a living witness of like what that looks like. So can we like break that down a little more, because slapping purpose and pain and, you know, it's a lot of verbiage that are going on, but like modeling, like what did that really look like? Walk us through just like a day of like pushing and persevering.
Right. So this is what I'm going to sound like. Okay. This is when the creative part of me really comes out, because I believe, are a reflection of a creator. And I really feel like the ability to express anything in any form in the arts is just such a honor. And it's something that I've really loved since I was young, even before I was diagnosed with all of these things, right? So within that comes a question of purpose from the beginning, or purpose that was kind of fostered through this experience of a struggle or of a battle of some kind. My pain almost 100% inspired my first album that got me discovered. So while that doesn't just happen out of thin air, I chose to transmute my experience in a way that would uplift others. Even if I didn't receive a radical healing or went through these treatments and they were successful, I could still show up with you today and be like, I may be experiencing X, Y, and Z, but the little girl who was bedridden pulled strength from the air to be able to be here. And that's been enough for me. It's just kind of relying on a higher self giving me wisdom and knowledge.
Okay. I think that it's always easier said than done, but I think that also hearing people and being able to relate really helps. So once again, I just thank you for being like vulnerable and like sharing that, because you don't have to.
I didn't feel like I had someone to look up to in that regard. So I think I might have kind of conjured up this character that I looked up to that would become my future self in order to hopefully be a lighthouse to others that may be experiencing that and maybe are on the brink of giving up on their dreams, whether it's related to the arts or otherwise, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's literally you just keyword lighthouse. Like you're just like showing up for others, you know, not even just for yourself, for others. So we appreciate that. I kind of want to like talk about like how you got into just like your career in general. Yes, we've had, you know, different factors that have played a role in your life, but you've pushed through, you've stayed motivated, and then you get this big break.
Right.
Like what was that like?
Well, my story is not a very common one. Back in 2012, I did this talent showcase. It was kind of like a American Idol situation where it's just tons of people coming to an audition, and if you get accepted, you get to perform. What ended up happening was I went to this showcase. I was like 14 at the time, and all the VIPs were like, do you have your own music? Do you have your own music? You know, we would love to sign you, but if you don't have your own stuff, then we don't really have anything to work with. Because songwriting is such a huge part of artistry, especially now.
Yeah.
So I went home. My mom bought me a laptop, and I couldn't play instruments because my joints. So I just started kind of knocking on wood and clapping and making weird noises and recording it, and that's what birthed my first song that I ever wrote called Generation Call. And then the kind of domino effect of that first birth of my like Eureka or like my Frankenstein.
What was the song about?
It's Alive. So it was actually about how I felt that older generations were kind of bashing my generation for being flippant, like maybe that's not the right word to use, but a little too snarky or sensitive and all these things. And I was like, we are a generation called, like, you know, we're warriors and fighters just as much as the ones before us. And I think because I just maybe have that type of fighting spirit within me, I was like, don't shoot us down before we even have a chance, you know? And I was writing that when I was 14, 15. So if that doesn't show my heart for, you know, people, I don't know what will. But that ended up being the name of my album that got me discovered, which was a 10-song album. All the first songs I ever wrote, and all of them were inspired by my experience of kind of isolation and self-motivation, living within this body that I have been given.
And then, okay, so your first album comes out, and then...
So the album never came out. So this is why it's very...
Wait, how
this
are
is
you
very
discovered?
Obscure, right? I ended up working with a producer.
Okay.
Because I couldn't produce on my own.
Right.
And a co-writer who, they're both so talented, and I adore them still to this day. We finished the album. I came out to LA for the first time. It was like...
This is still all before 16.
This is 15. So I came out.
You came to LA with your mom, I'm assuming.
With my mom and my sisters. And I didn't even know how the industry worked. I didn't know, like, LA existed. This is where it was all done. You know, this is where the, you know, Hollywood Walk of Fame. It just kind of seemed like a fairy tale.
Okay.
And I came and I was like, this is it. Like, this is the place I've been dreaming of that exists. This is my land of Oz, you know, and where's the Wizard of Oz? And that producer and co-writer ended up kind of sending my music out on a whim. They really believed in me, and it landed on the ears of Dark Child, which is so crazy. And just a side note, because I can't make this up, I was sitting in the living room at my house in Indiana, and I was watching the Cheetah Girls, which was like... That was like my thing. Yeah. They really inspired me. And in the film, Raven's like, we're going to work with this producer and Dark Child. And I kid you not, she says that. And our home phone rings, which is crazy, home phone. And it was him on the phone. And I was like, Mom, they literally just said this man's name in the Cheetah Girls movie.
Wow.
So he flew my family and I out. It was a whole thing. He had a venture label under Capitol at the time called Evolve. Mm-hmm. It was me and a few other artists, including Evan Ross, Diana Ross's son.
Wow.
And I just remember being so sure of myself. And not really having the grounds to be so sure of myself from an industry. It was just like this. I made this music.
Exactly.
This is me. This is my vision. Too. I'm a teenager, and that was like the start of me in the music industry in a real way. I remember walking into the Capitol building, and I saw the Beatles contract on the wall, hanging on the wall, and I was just like,
wow,
this isn't just stuff. Up in my mind, right?
Yeah.
So it was, I can still like feel all the feelings that I'm
sure it's life-changing. Then. So you get to LA, you go in, you guys sit down, you are sure of yourself, you present your music, and then what were like next steps?
I went home and I had my Sweet 16, and my mom I had to catch a red eye to go back. And my mom was like going through my closet to pick clothes.
For the Sweet 16?
No. To come to LA.
To come after the Sweet 16.
Literally right after my birthday party, right?
Red eye. Got it.
And she was like, God just told me you're never sleeping in this bed again. So what do you want to get rid of? We're packing everything.
Gosh.
And I packed 6 suitcases and I never slept in that bed again. So they ended up throwing me on tour with Sam Smith. I had never performed music live. I didn't even have music released.
Wow.
And when I say live, I mean my own music.
Right.
So we had to scramble. We had 2 weeks, find a band, do rehearsals, the whole shebang.
And you're like opening up for him?
Opening up for him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was the only opener. We did 2 days. I don't know how many dates it was, but we did the Belasco and Rickshaw Stop in San Francisco. And I don't know what they were expecting. I don't know what the heck they were thinking, honestly. Because
Why?
I just didn't have the chops. You know, I came from a cornfield. So it was pretty crazy for them. I was very confident.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to gain some of that back.
Yeah.
You get a little jaded after.
It's here.
After a few years. But yeah, it was that in itself is a movie, that whole experience. I got laryngitis. I did not have a voice 2 days prior.
No.
And had this like miraculous experience where I gained my voice back like a day before. And it was just life-changing.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about like your stage name and
yeah.
Like, how did we get like
I love
Keta
my name.
Jeaux is your stage name, right?
Right.
But your government name, if we'd like to share with everyone, what's your government name?
So I'm named after my grandmother, my mom's mom.
Okay.
She was my best friend. She's no longer with us.
Okay.
But my full name is Marquita Josephine.
Okay.
So I was called Keta Jeaux for short because my grandmother was Keta. So to kind of like differentiate, I was Keta Jeaux.
Got it.
When I came into the industry, though, they were like, Keta Jeaux sounds a little country with this Joe. You know, it's like Donna Joe or like a Mary Ann, you know, where it's like 2 names. So I cut the Joe off. And that always kind of felt weird to me because that wasn't my name. That was my grandmother's name.
Right.
So fast forward, I'm doing everything as Keta. And then probably during the pandemic, my mom...
This is recent.
This change, right? So my mom was like, I woke up from my sleep with your new artist name.
Your mom is everything.
My mom is everything.
Okay, wait, is she here in LA with you?
No, she's in Georgia, and I hate it.
We need her here.
She is a incubator for talent.
Yes, and like, just like vision and hearing from God.
Everything.
I love that. Okay, so
talk about Lighthouse. She has been
I can imagine.
Lighthouse.
I mean, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, so you know, I can imagine. Okay, so she wakes up and she's like, I have your new station. Yeah,
and so it's Keta Jeaux.
Okay.
But it's spelled Jeaux.
Okay. Instead of like Joe, J-O-E. Oh, so that's how you spelled it as well.
Yeah.
Joe. Okay.
And it means, I believe, last time I checked. It means joy in French, which really resonated with me because I actually stopped performing when I got diagnosed with narcolepsy because I felt like it had stripped my joy away. And so it gave me my name back, but in a cooler way. And also kind of reminds me that I can continue with this kind of pursuit of, you know, my purpose and passion and live in joy again, which is really cool.
Which brings me to my, you know, next question. And I know that it's very obvious. We can all say it's so obvious, like, oh, what's your purpose? But like, really, what do you think your purpose is now? In this season that you're in, what would you say your purpose is?
So as of like 2 weeks ago, I decided to do an artist project again.
Okay.
For many years, I was like, okay, I'm only a songwriter. I would go into sessions and say, are you an artist too? No, I used to be an artist.
Right.
Which that has been just a whole narrative that has played out for many years of me just being a songwriter, writing for other people. I love being in the studio. I love interpreting people's thoughts and presenting them in the form of a song. Okay. I love that form of connection. And that's where I've found my success over the few years that I've been it feels like so long. Like
I mean, essentially, it's 10 years is quite a long time.
It
right?
is a long
10 years.
time.
It's been 10 years in the industry for you, right?
Or yeah, just about 10. Okay. I have probably over 25 million streams across my discography. Wow. Almost all of them are international placements with other artists. And I don't know, something in me just kind of clicked and I was like, I'm an artist. Like that was what birthed all of this, was me being confident in myself and my vision. And so I'm developing something I'm really excited about.
Can we share it or no?
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's all inspired again kind of with my experience within my body.
Okay.
But in a way that's going to be a lot more surrealist.
Okay.
I really want it to be an immersive experience.
Okay.
The industry has shifted from just a listener or a listener consumer to people needing to experience more than just what hits the ear.
Right.
They want to be part of a community. Yeah. They want to feel like they're building something. We see this all over TikTok with artists being discovered from like grassroots, right? So I really want to give people something they can dive into and kind of help develop, at least from a visual standpoint, and give them a glimpse into just like my experience of that veil being really thin.
This is just awesome. I'm really excited to just see like your future.
So am I.
Yeah, I mean, because you've started at such a young age and you made such a huge impact like on yourself. It's not even about everyone else and everyone around you, like on yourself. And as you said, you brought that up in the earlier about like mental, like being able to be mentally strong. And that's not easy on top of the type of industry that you're in. I think that just in general, that's not easy. But I could imagine how much pressure is put on being in the industry and going through what you're going through, right? But still keeping mental health, you know, at the top front.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm a huge advocate for just overall wellness.
Yeah.
But so much of that comes down to our perception of ourselves. And if we were sitting down and you were talking to Keta from like right before the pandemic, I was really going through it, like in a way where I've experienced so much reinvention, where prior my kind of mindset was, oh, I wish I could get back to that 16-year-old. Like, I just need to find her again instead of just create whoever I wanted to be.
Right.
So where I'm at now is in that like, I'm in that rest stage right before you take off, right? So I'm conjuring up ideas. I'm kind of placing the pieces and finding the roadmap to wherever this ends up leading me.
Yeah.
But you can always reinvent yourself at any time.
Yes, this is the key point. I think this is like a nugget that I think that you dropped several nuggets, you know, throughout the conversation. But I think that this is really key because people just assume that, at least I'm assuming that people assume that this is just the route and, you know, I can't reinvent myself because I said that I was an artist and now, like, who says you can't?
It's like I peaked in high school, that one touchdown I did.
And then what? Like, it's okay to reinvent yourself. I think it's healthy to reinvent yourself. You'd be crazy to think that you're just going to go through life the same 13-year-old, 14-year-old that you were at 35, at 40, like we have an issue if you haven't reinvented yourself. So I appreciate you sharing that. How do you think that you are, and I'm sure that you've answered this, but I would love just a little more of like, how are you reinventing yourself?
Well, I'm huge on visuals. So like vision boarding specifically, law of attraction, speaking life over myself.
Absolutely.
So one of the funny things that I started doing during the pandemic when we were all in this like very isolated place, almost as a joke. It always kind of feels like a joke in the beginning, right? When you're so used to being on autopilot in this one space of being yourself, this one version of being yourself, it's very laughable to start to speak, you know, a higher version of yourself into existence. But you have to just do it.
Right.
You giggle. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, it makes
But
sound
eventually
crazy,
you start to believe it and become it. And
I agree
so
100%.
During the pandemic, I like, as a loose joke, I'd be like, I'm a genius.
Huh.
And then I would be like, it would kind of be like, ugh. And I'd be like, I'm a genius. And then I would be like, Mom, I'm a genius. And she'd be like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And then eventually other people started saying it to me. And I was like, I know.
Right.
Like, maybe not verbally, right? Because we want to keep our sense of just like, but.
Humble, stay humble. Yes,
right.
I hear what
but
you're
I was
saying,
like,
though.
oh my gosh, I know. Because I
manifested
I
that,
told
like,
myself this.
Yes.
And so. And people have a weird feeling over that word, but I dare you to start saying that.
Okay.
Because it is so versatile.
Okay.
A creative genius, a mathematical genius, a philosophical genius. All of us have that innately within us. We all start from the same place. And I think that word genius is just so powerful to speak over ourselves because it will awaken that part of you that dreamed freely as a child that at one point got shut down. And so I'm kind of finding that that is where I've been living over the past 2 years, maybe almost 3, is this state of just allowing that state of genius to flow, which is birthing new ideas and ideologies about myself that I was kind of like put on the back burner.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming.
Oh my gosh, anytime.
No, that was great. I think it's so important. I mean, you literally just dropped, you know, when we do these conversations, yes, it's for everyone, but I just get firsthand experience to like the greatness, the energy, and just the tools that you dropped. Like I can definitely put a few in my back pocket and make sure I'm speaking over my life. That's important. Speaking over your life. So I am going to definitely test myself on a few new, you know, things that I can speak on over my life. And I challenge you all to do the same, is, you know, speak over your life. And, you know, we'll just,
I mean, you're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
It's just to what extent and what type of energy are you pushing towards yourself? We're always talking to ourselves.
Oh, thank you for coming. Yes. That was great. That was great.
So fun.
You guys, well, let everyone know where they can find, you know, your upcoming music or projects, or how we can keep up with you.
Instagram is probably the best way to find me.
We love Instagram.
At Keta Jeaux, KetaJeux. I'm kind of I'm in the middle of that archiving all my posts and starting over.
It's okay.
To represent myself or, you know, reinvent myself and all that good stuff. But yeah, come join me on the journey.
Yes. Well, guys, you heard her. Come join her. We want to just say thank you once again. And some key points that I think that we can take away from this: being able to reinvent yourself and being able to speak over your life. I think that that's key. And Keta obviously thinks that is key, and she's like firsthand experiencing it. So if you guys have any other creatives like Keta, once again, thank you once again for just coming. But if there are any other creatives that you guys have in mind, or if you are a creative yourself, go ahead to meshclctv.com, submit, and we'll be waiting for you. Welcome to Mesh.
Mesh Talk is created and produced by The Mesh Collective.